Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Executive Intern Speaker Series. I am Sam Colliss, a senior management major and executive intern of the Office of the Provost. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jeff Rice, who is the owner of Flower City CrossFit. Jeff has over 15 years experience as a successful entrepreneur in different industries. And along with being an award-winning gym owner, Jeff has been a software development consultant, a published author, and a woodworking craftsman. So thank you, Jeff, for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your story.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
So when did you first realize that you had the entrepreneurial spirit within you?
Probably, actually it was fairly early on. Shortly after graduating college, I was working for General Electric. And even then, I had had several discussions with my brother about, one day starting our own software company. And we had looked at a few ideas. At that point, nothing ever took off the ground, but it was fairly early on. Kind of knew that at some point I wanted to be working for myself rather than working for somebody else.
Okay. So I know you were in the software industry. Can you tell me how you got started in that and then eventually decided to start your own consulting firm?
Yeah. So early on in my career, I graduated college in engineering, and I went to work for General Electric as basically as an electrical engineer, systems engineer. And at that point, it was really when I first got exposed to writing computer software. And so while I was at General Electric, I taught myself the C programming language and then put together some courses in C programming that I started teaching to other engineers at GE. And it just kind of took off from there. I really found that I really loved software. I loved writing software and creating stuff, applications for people to run and so forth. So it kind of started from there. Then I left GE and started working for Sun Microsystems, which is a large computer manufacturer at the time, and got into more software consulting work through them.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what made you decide to switch from the software industry to what you do now in owning a CrossFit gym?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What I found is when I started my software consulting company, the software that we wrote and we worked on was all internal software for large Fortune 100 companies. So we wrote billing systems that helped large pharmaceutical companies with clinical trials. We wrote some software for the real estate industry. And it was all great, but it was a kind of thing where while I was doing it, I kind of felt a pretty strong feeling of being unfulfilled. And what I eventually narrowed it down to was that at the end of the day, I couldn't really point to any actual person who I felt like I made their life better today. We have people working for us and, you make their life better because you're providing them a job and they get a salary and all that stuff. But I just couldn't really feel a really strong impact for like day to day that I was doing something that was actually making someone's life better. And that, along with a bunch of other things, kind of led me into opening the gym. And it was and has been one of the biggest joys I get from running a CrossFit gym is that every day you see someone whose life is directly impacted and directly made better because of something that you did. We've even had people at the gym who met at the gym, got married, had kids. And it's really amazing when, they bring their kid in, you're holding this baby and it's like, this child would not be alive today if I hadn't actually opened this gym. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it sounds like gives you some purpose and you love what you do. So that's encouraging. So I know where the gym is, but how did you decide on that location specifically?
So that's kind of a great question because at the time I kind of didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, we got very lucky in many regards to our selection. We were primarily looking for a location that was fairly close to residential areas, but also close to businesses, and in particular, sort of like not necessarily like retail business, but like a lot of office type work, professionals, so that we could catch people on their way to work, on their way home from work, a location that was kind of close to both. So I probably spent 3 to 4 months on site selection, finding a place. And off the bat, I thought this is a pretty good location, seems really good. And it turned up being even better than I thought. So there was some good thought that was put into it, but I ended up getting even there was a little bit of luck there too. We got a really great spot that was even better than I thought it was going to be. So.
Yeah. So it all came together for you there.
Yes, it did.
Nice. So I know that the fitness industry in Rochester is very crowded. You have all the commercial places like LA Fitness and Midtown, and then you have all the CrossFit gyms as well. So how do you stay competitive for membership, given that it is so, I guess, competitive?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things about this. One is that when we opened the gym in 2010, there were only 2 or 3 CrossFit gyms in Rochester. We were one of the early gyms to open. So when we first opened, the market wasn't nearly as saturated. Now we compete against non-CrossFit gyms by offering something that's a little bit unique. It certainly was when we first opened, and it continues to be such. And that is we're not looking for a gym where people can come buy a membership and then not show up. The traditional gyms, their favorite client is the client who pays for a year and never walks through the door. They love those people. And honestly, I mean, it'd be great to get, the free revenue, but honestly, I like people that come every day or almost every day. Those are the people that I really like because, again, I get that ability to really have something that's going to make a strong impact on your life. If you never go to the gym, you're not going to get that impact. So we don't really feel like we're competing with those gyms. In terms of the smaller boutique gyms or the actual other CrossFit gyms. I think we stay competitive in a couple of ways. One is that I feel like we're always trying to evolve. There's a lot of, when I first started CrossFit, there was a sort of a standard format that people followed for their workouts, for the programming for the day, where people come in, they do a short workout, a warm up, they do a workout and they leave. And there's a lot of gyms that still do it that way. And we've expanded our programming. We offer lots of different things. We give people the opportunity to work on extra stuff. So part of the way we compete is by changing and evolving. There's a common phrase in business that if you're not growing, you're dying. And I believe that's really true. If you're not constantly looking to improve and change your game, you're standing still and everyone's going to pass you. So we've tried to really evolve as we've gone through.
Yeah. So speaking of evolution, with the pandemic affecting, so many businesses, especially gyms with all the mandates, how were you able to navigate that? And are you still kind of dealing with some of the shock waves of it?
Yeah. So the pandemics hit the fitness industry harder than any other industry. And in fact, of all the industries which were specifically targeted with restrictions, think of theaters, hairstylists, any other whole industry segment that was targeted. The fitness industry and gyms are the only industry that didn't have a specific targeted relief bill make it through Congress. Every other industry got specific relief other than the fitness industry. So we're still the only industry that got singled out by that. So we've been out kind of struggling through this on our own from day one. And there continue to be impact. Our industry was pretty strongly villainized throughout the pandemic. Everyone was saying, oh, gyms are so dangerous, even though there was never any scientific data to back that up. And as a result, there's a lot of people who are still afraid to come back to the gym. We have clients who were with us for years before the pandemic. And, we've reached out to them and they say, yeah, I'm just still not comfortable coming back to a gym. I'm still, afraid I'm going to get COVID from the gym. Even though there's never been any data to support that gyms are any more dangerous than just going to the grocery store. So it had a huge impact on us because we were completely shut down for a long period of time. And it continues to have impact in that, we're still down in membership from where we were pre-pandemic. So it's been a big challenge.
Yeah. And it's also seems like people that go to the gym make a habit out of it. And once you remove that from them for months on end, it's hard to kind of start that up again as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in particular with CrossFit can be a little intimidating for people because, it's very challenging workouts. It's hard. And people, take a fair amount of time to build up to the point where they really feel like, oh, I'm really, I have a certain level of being like really good at this. And I'm not afraid of coming in the workouts. And then they stay away for 2 months and they're like, I don't know if I can come back. Maybe I should get in shape again before I come back. And, they have all that hesitancy. So I think it's probably even stronger perhaps for CrossFit gyms just because the workouts are very challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I mentioned some of your businesses earlier. Did you have a mentor when you started, or were you more self-taught, self-directed?
Yeah, I never really had a mentor. And I wish I did. There's a lot of things that I learned the hard way. And, in retrospect, if I had a little more guidance early on, and, you always look back and say, boy, if I knew then what I know now, I would have made some different choices. And that's very true. But yeah, I just kind of, when I started my software consulting company, which was the largest company that I had, at one point we had like 50 employees. So we were a fairly large consulting company. I had 2 business partners, and the good news there is that while we didn't really have any mentors, we had complementary skills. And so that helped us a lot. So we helped kind of mentor each other as we learned things and figured things out. We could kind of share the knowledge. So that was very helpful. But most of the stuff has just been, trial and error, figuring things out. And honestly, like trying to like read and learn as much as you can. There are 6 million books on entrepreneurship and running a business and starting a business. And, some of them are great. Some of them are just nonsense, but I think it never hurts to like constantly be curious, constantly learn, and just like always be reading.
Yeah, that's interesting. My next question is actually about Tom Golisano's book, Built Not Born, and he's referring to entrepreneurs. And I was wondering, do you think that entrepreneurs are built or born?
I think it's actually both, honestly. I really do. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be a risk taker. You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to be willing to make mistakes, pick yourself up, and move forward after your mistakes, learn from them and then try again. And honestly, that's not in everybody's DNA. Some people are just not risk takers. They're risk averse. And, there's all kinds of neuroscience behind what makes people risk takers or not. And it really does seem to be something about the way certain brains are wired. So I think that element of it, like there are some people who have a brain that's wired so that they would be more likely to be an entrepreneur. But then beyond that becomes like the built part. You just because you may be a risk taker doesn't also mean that you're going to automatically be an entrepreneur. You have to learn. You have to like try things. You have to go through all the steps to be successful with it.
Yeah. So you mentioned risk taker. What are some other qualities you think an entrepreneur needs in order to be successful?
I think you have to be, trying to think of the best word for this. First one that popped in my head is you have to be tenacious. You just have to like, get a vision of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, what you want to start. And you've got to be like both feet in. Like you have to be 100% committed, and you have to be tenacious, because it's not an easy road. It never is. There's a phrase, I can't remember who initially said it, but they say that like entrepreneurs are the only people who will leave a 40-hour-a-week job so that they can work 80 hours a week. It really is true. It's like, this is not an easy road, but it's so rewarding because, everything is like what you put into it. You can work a 40-hour-a-week job for your whole life, but so much of it is like out of your control. You just kind of do your thing. Maybe you get a raise, maybe you don't. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, it's all on you. Like everything is riding on your efforts and your labors. So yeah, I think tenacious is probably a good one.
Yeah. And it sounds like, being an entrepreneur is exciting. You have so much freedom, which is what's attractive to me about it. But I'm also wondering, do you have any other advice you would give to somebody who wants to start their own business? I know you've covered a lot here. So
yeah, I mean, so sometime probably 25 or so years ago, I stumbled across a quote which has stuck with me forever. It's like, this is like one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's by a guy named Paul Sappho, and the quote is, "Never mistake a clear view for a short distance." So like a lot of times if you see a mountain off in the distance, you think, oh, like, I'm driving along, oh, I'll be there in like, 20 minutes. You drive for 20 minutes and it's like, it still looks like it's the same distance away. But because you can see it so clearly, your brain tricks you into thinking like you're close, but you're not really close. And that's true of a lot of things when you're starting your own business, when you're an entrepreneur. A lot of entrepreneurs get a really clear vision of what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. And they somehow consciously or unconsciously think, because their vision is so clear and they know so precisely what they want to do, like this is going to be easy. And it's never easy. There's so many steps to get to your vision. So, I think that's probably one of the most common advice I give to people is, regardless of how clear your vision is, understand that it's going to be a long journey and it's going to be difficult. And if it seems like it's really easy to get there, you're probably missing something. Like the hard stuff is what's really going to be rewarding. And I just thought of another one. Another really good advice I give to entrepreneurs is another kind of cliche phrase, which is given to people in the food services restaurant industry. And that is, the wrong reason for opening a restaurant is because you like to cook. And the same is true of most businesses. Like one of the things that we have seen in the fitness world is there's been a lot of gyms in our area and all across the United States where people open a CrossFit gym because they love CrossFit, they love working out and all that stuff. And then they open the gym, and after a couple of months, they decide, shoot, this is running a business. This isn't CrossFit. This is running a business. It's like just loving CrossFit's the wrong reason to open a CrossFit gym. You have to love the business part of it. You have to love like creating something and creating a business and running a business and all the stuff that goes along with it. So that's another, I think, a really solid piece of advice, regardless of what the area is you might want to be drawn to with your entrepreneurial endeavors, is like just having a passion for that area is not enough to make it a successful business. You have to love business. You have to love running a business and operating a business.
Yeah, that really is great advice. And I haven't heard too many people say it. Like, that's like very truthful. So I appreciate that. So I'm a big reader, and I know you're a published author, and you mentioned reading a lot of books. So my last question is, do you have a favorite book, and what is it?
Favorite book? I'm really into, I'm thinking like nonfiction books here. So in the nonfiction world, I'm really into brain science and like what makes brains work. And I do coach adults and actually a lot of entrepreneurs with ADHD. And so I'm really interested in how how the brain works. And I think probably two books I really enjoyed. One is specifically about brain science. It's called Your Brain at Work by David Rock. It's a really interesting book that talks about the way your brain works in relationship to business, and in particular, managing people and interacting with other people in the business world. So it's a really good book, and very easy to, it doesn't dive into a whole bunch of neuroscience to make it so it's not a very approachable book. And then recently, another book I really like is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a great book.
Yeah,
it's a great book. A lot of really good bits of information about building habits and using habits to kind of help you accomplish what you want to do.
Yeah, you're probably the fourth person I've heard recommend Atomic Habits, so I think I got to get on that now at this point.
Yeah, it's a good book. It really is. One thing I will say, because I coach a lot of people with ADHD too, is that one of the big challenges for people with ADHD is that ADHD brains don't work exactly the same way that people who don't have ADHD do. And most of the productivity books out there are not written for ADHD people. So Atomic Habits is really good, but when I talk to my ADHD clients about it, it's like, okay, great ideas in here. We have to adapt them to work for you, because a lot of the stuff he says is like just not going to like line up if you have ADHD. So, and that's, that's interesting thing about a lot of those productivity books. And I think this is true also of a lot of business books too. People look at a lot of those sources of material and you want to treat it almost like, it's like the Bible. I'm just going to do exactly what this person says. And nothing is ever that easy. Like, read those books, pull out the pieces that you think are useful to you and helpful, but also look at everything with a little bit of a critical eye and understand that for these things to work, you may have to adapt it and you may have to do things a little bit differently because of your business or what you're planning on accomplishing.
Yeah, that's very, very insightful. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining me. It's been informative. I've learned a lot, and I truly appreciate your time.
Cool. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sam. See ya.